Jeff, I'm glad we've got some time to talk today. There's a common question that I've been getting lately, and it's about Google's Search Generative Experience, SGE. And it seems to me that a lot of those questions are coming from e-commerce sites. They're
Yes.
scared,
Well,
to put it
they're
bluntly.
understandably scared, Stephen. We as we note in the e-commerce content maturity model, a lot of teams haven't nailed what content they need to be creating. They're worried about taking away from sales. They're worried about making great user experiences, and all of those things are combining in one kind of coliseum of the search result right now.
Yes.
Um, and the types of questions that you're getting is it the ones that you're getting, are they mostly about like what should I do about this, or should I worry about it? How would you classify them?
Uh, it's really both. It's like I'm worried. Should I be? And what should I do about it?
Gotcha. Nice. Well, this is something that you and I talk about a lot, obviously. And we're watching the Google search generative experience as it changes and evolves. And I'll set up an example right here. I'm going to share my screen and
Okay.
walk through kind of this experience if people aren't familiar with it. I'll give some basics, um, talk through some aspects that not a lot of people are talking about, and then show you connect the dots between what is kind of the meets minimum for an e-commerce site right now. And it's independent of the competition, but I'm going to show you one that's super high competition, obviously, because I like the extremes. So this is a
Oh,
query for diamond rings for women. First of all, if you're not in the beta, go find it, search labs beta, try to get approved for everything you possibly can. There's even a new thing that generates music right now. It's pretty wild that you can get a hold of. But what you're seeing here is the search generative experience where it automatically expands. And so when I'm searching, this is generating on the fly and it's automatically there. There may be an expander, a second expander, and there may be some follow-ups. These are trying to guide intent and try to give Google more information about what your path is, where you are in the buyer journey, for example. So this is great information to understand and what Google's going through to try to figure out what to deliver. And so what we're going to walk through here is where Google is showing the basic topic layer, the basic layer of slices and dices based on the other search result sets that they have: shopping, images, video, news,
and
books,
that's
maps, flights.
typical, right, Jeff? That's typical what you see in search right now,
You're going to
anyways.
see that for almost everything. Where Google has determined there are other more important topics, you can see those, and they'll typically pack in to the left here. So between converse, and shopping, you'll see them pop in. It sometimes can be dragged into a larger layer, and I can show you an example of that. But what you're seeing here is the default set, right? Exactly, and then you see a shopping pills, some people call it, or the shopping layer, where these are actually query modifiers. So diamond rings for women, I am telling them I'm refining that query. I'm not I'm not going into a different situation. So when I choose to go here, I'm actually modifying my query to engagement diamond rings for women. So it's
Right.
adding an additional layer uh, of the to the query refinement. And you can see that here too. So I can turn that on and off. And if you look at the URL at the bottom here, you see diamond rings for women. If I were to turn this off, I go back to my original query. If I were to go to here, I actually add to it. So it's a really cool way of understanding keyword variants, but that's not what we're talking about today. But if you want to go back and forth on topic keyword variants and how that drives the buyer journey, that's something that would be an amazing discussion too. And I'll just show you the example: Tiffany and Co. engagement ranks for women. So I actually will re-query and get those results. So you can learn a lot in the SGE by doing that. So this is a separate item, separate topic for sure for query refinement. But Google's doing a lot of query refinement here. It's a signal that there's a journey happening, and they're not really exactly sure of the ideal one. So what they're giving us is a basic book report. I like to say it's
Yeah.
here really basic. And then when I show more, I'm in that buyer zone. So Google is making the assumption that a great deal of people are browsing for products here.
Yeah.
However, there are other intents that are important to consider. But if you imagine, I mean, look at all the things I can click on here, right? I mean, I can go into, I don't know why I'd want to buy a flight here. Maybe I'm right.
That's an
But
interesting one.
all of these other things, these are all feasible intents.
Yes.
Some more prominent than others. These are all ways to refine that they've determined through their data that are going to be valuable. I mean, one cool one here is nearby, right? That's a
Mhm.
different intent. Then this is actually a different intent here than two, because this is type of, this is prices of, this is uh, um, query refinement. This is actually purchase intent or current right now. So now you start clicking through and go, gosh, if I have a category page and I want to rank for diamond rings for women, I have to have content that tells the story that I know about all these things. I
Right.
know how it relates to a band. I know how it relates to the statement it makes, which is kind of funny. The engagement, stackable types of a promise ring. If I don't sell it, obviously I'm not going to have that intent covered. But as far as the information and purchase journey, there's a lot there that I have to have covered in
So
order to tell that story, right?
so I can't get away with anymore just having like a category page of all my products and it just says diamond rings for women. Check out our wonderful diamond rings for women of all shapes and sizes and prices.
Well, you've nailed it. I mean, and think about it almost in that paradox, right? Because this is actually what Google's doing, is what you said. They're they're just getting away with it, right? And that's
Yeah.
cool because that's their place. They're determining that that's their place here. So basic category blurb, then all the rest. So now
Right.
you have to be thinking about this almost like the reverse of that, right?
Right.
So
But what's
when
the
you're
other
building,
stuff there on the side?
oh
Right?
yeah,
Because
sure,
that's interesting.
yeah. So this is interesting, and these changed based on clicks. Like the first one you would click on, the second one, these can actually evolve. This is
Okay.
them delivering a collection of content that represents their perspective on that journey. So what's interesting? What are the ways that people are thinking about this that maybe aren't the prevailing intent, or these are the items sourced for this text or
Gotcha.
referenced as part of this generation, right? So, an interesting thing you can do here is you can actually stack these. And I can say, okay, well, here's a section of that little blurb, and where did it come from, right? And so this is really
Mm,
interesting. Blue Nile, one of the top diamond sales sites in the world, they have, in this case, this is a category page. And I'm going to show you something really interesting here, right? Uh-oh, this
what?
just anchored to the footer because they've decided that their content strategy is going to have a small blurb
Right.
and below the fold some Q&A, right?
Ah,
And so in this case, this little blurb here was used as part of the guideposts for this sentence. So you now are recognizing that you may have a user who gets to your cited source. And when they click on it, they're not getting the typical experience. They're getting almost like that passage that one might get promoted in a featured snippet. That passage is being actually modifying that experience to go to the footer. So you not showcasing that in a great way and creating a wonderful user experience and you relegating that into a footer expander creates
yeah.
a very what I would describe as a bad
Well,
user experience, right?
yeah, and typically people, people are putting that content down there in the bottom because they figure, you know what, I got to have that content on the page somewhere. But I don't really care if my users see that. Just throw it down at the bottom so that Google will rank me. Everybody will go to the top of the page.
Exactly. And so
Not anymore.
yeah, the most powerful e-commerce companies can get away with that, not having that showcase experience where
Right.
you're saying, we understand you, we understand the buyer journey, we understand all the things you care about, and having that be prominent. We're going through the buyer journey with you. And so the e-commerce folks are saying, get me to the purchase journey, get me to that browse. I want you browsing in that aisle. But I have to put some content on here, right?
Yeah.
And so that whole thing, that evolution is going to happen real fast because of experiences like this. And for teams that have no content on those category pages and have no journey content, haven't even gotten there, oof, this is a immediate business case internally for e-commerce content strategy. Is to say, wow, we have a birdie page, made by one of the most powerful content strategy organizations in the world that really shows experience, shows, pictures of the person who wrote it, gets into details of things you want to think about. I mean, like I meant, this isn't even really very diamond ring related, so you might want to question the value. But jewelry trends, jewelry pieces, these are items that are being sourced for this. And as Google gets better at refining this intent, it's going to make the teams that have gotten on the bus and gotten a high level of maturity for their content strategy are going to have a huge advantage. I mean, the other two items I'll call out here is these are really great journey understanding. These are really great understanding of what Google's going through,
What
right?
does it
What does it
really?
mean? Do they hold their
Yeah.
value? What's a reasonable price, right? So
Mm,
now I've got effectively the lesson plan, right? And when it has a topic layer, it's even better, which I'll show you in a second. But I got the lesson plan, all the ways that people are thinking about this. I've got the content strategy, right? I've got some other ways that people are refining. I've got the PAA, right,
right.
which has its own methodology, and all goes into saying, "Gosh, I really need a great plan here, and it can't be just me relegating it to a weird section of my site or a siloed blog, because that's not doing a great job either. Because
Yeah.
then a user gets there, and we have to do a real big force for them to get into the appropriate part of the journey. So we don't
Mhm.
want to put them over in left field. We want to have that just be part of the experience. And Google's really giving us the answer key for the experience they think people want. And they're going to be wrong and they're going to mess up and they're going to refine, refine, refine. They always have. But this is the first time we're really seeing Google tell the story that for e-commerce, content is actually one of the most important things. And that's, amazing shift that we're seeing with this.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks, Stephen. I'm glad we got to check this out. Let me just see if I have an example of this. Yes. Okay. So this is non-SGE, right?
Right.
Similar concepts, but I've got my default slices. I've got my buyer refinements. I've got my ad pack here. No local pack. So
Hmm.
they're not saying that map is a core intent, and then a lot of imagery and carousels. But let's say you're down here as this page is,
Right.
and you score the SGE. Well, that experience isn't what you expect. You've got a lot of work to do. And honestly, in this example, every single one of these sites has massive, massive work to do to get into a point where they can be successful. And that's, the story in almost every single topic area that I'm looking at in e-commerce. Thankfully, we've gotten a lot of teams ahead of that, and to the point where they're. I like to think of it instead of thinking of it as a hub. I like to think of it as a showcase. I'm showcasing that I understand the buyer journey,
Yeah.
and that that needs to drive the bus for all of these e-commerce companies. So
So the long and the short then is if you're in e-commerce, the the bad news is that you really do have your work cut out for you. The good news, if there is any, is that, well, you know what? Everybody's pretty much in the same boat at this point. At this
yeah.
point.
Well, yeah, it goes for e-commerce, and I think it goes for local too. There's a similar
Mhm.
metaphor. Um, you need to know whether there are any standout winners here
Mhm.
and don't use it to copy them, but use them as your level. We've got to put together the plan that puts us ahead and makes us the thought leader. Um, and so teams with a strong content strategy and editorial operation have a unfair unfair advantage. But yeah, whether you're talking local or whether you're talking um, ecom, those are two that I would say are the most obvious buckets here.
Mhm.
The third is going to be affiliate sites who've only covered middle of funnel. They are the third. They will be the third. I don't want to say victims, but they're the third pressure point that Google's applying with this
Mhm.
type of tech. So those are my three.
And they're all going to have to up their content game and start thinking about content differently and not just, stuff we throw at the bottom of the page or a blog post we, put up somewhere else on our site just so we can say we got the content.
Yeah, exactly. So the we gotta be thinking about the queries, and the query is deserves buyer journey content. It deserves information journey content. It deserves content that tells the story of local understanding. It deserves experience that you actually had the experience you're saying you
Right.
did.
Yes.
That it illustrates expertise. So you've got to be able to analyze this to say, do I possess? Have I written content at all stages of the journey? Have I exhibited expertise? Have I shown that I am real and have had an experience? Because you are up against a company, like Blue Nile, right? They
Hmm.
have the credibility.
Right.
If I'm, Joe's jewelry shop, sorry, Joe's jewelry shop, on the corner of, in Smyrna, Georgia, I don't have that credibility. So I've got
Right.
to go above and beyond. So there's two have and have nots, sure. But even we just saw the example where of number one is being treated badly,
Hmm.
right? From the standpoint of an SEO, they're probably looking like we're getting treated badly. But honestly, it's because content strategy isn't number one, and
Right.
that's the key. Well, thanks, Stephen. This has been awesome. I'm glad we got to talk about this. Hopefully, this helps anyone and everyone looking at this from a content strategy perspective and like, what do I do if Google changes our entire search results? Is the answer is we always say the answer tends to be content if you're talking to MarketMuse, but in this case, I mean, it's telling that story.
Yeah. Great.
Cool. Thank
Thanks
you.
again, Jeff.
I see you. Bye bye.
Bye now.